Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Sam for another special spoiler discussion. This is part 7 of Ahsoka, Dreams and Madness, and we are here to talk about our experiences watching the episodes, going through the major moments, as we always do. Just a panel of two of us tonight. We were meant to get Jack on with a few changes. We're going to do a lovely shout-out to last week's incredible episode. Neither of us were on it last week. We had a new team on, which was great. We had Dave, we had Tate, we had Jack. And if you haven't watched that, please do catch up because that discussion was one of the best Star Wars things I've listened to in a very long time, especially the Macbeth stuff. If anyone's curious, if you haven't watched it, then go. But before I start plugging other things and all that, Sam, how are you doing tonight?
Very good, very good. I mean, we are coming to the end of this Ahsoka series soon, which seems mad. But unlike what some people are saying about it being a boring episode, I had a great time. Watching it, and I'm looking forward to discussing it.
Absolutely same here. It is one of those where it did drop at 2 a.m. This is the first episode I watched at 2 a.m. The bags under my eyes might give that away. Yeah, there's a fair amount to go through. There's just two of us. But what we're going to do, as always, we do want to hear from people watching at home. So please do comment below with your thoughts on Ahsoka. As you said, it's a spoiler discussion. We do everything spoilery in these videos. I don't know what that was. Sorry, I had a notification pop on my phone because I've been sleeping tonight and I didn't realize there was football on. But we are doing the spoiler discussion. We're going to go through the episodes. We're going to go through the major moments. We're going to probably give some, not theories and predictions for next week, but it's the penultimate episode of the series. So we're clearly going to be talking about some stuff for next week. We've got some returning faces. We've got some reunions of cast members who didn't get to share a scene, which we'll talk about. All that sort of stuff. So please do get involved. Hit the subscribe button. There's more Star Wars stuff coming. The finale is next Wednesday. And I won't announce it yet, but there is an idea to do something after Ahsoka to tee up a big video down the line, which Sam doesn't know about, which I'm going to tell him about afterwards. But don't let me forget, because it's been in my head for a few weeks, and I think it'll be interesting, certainly, depending on how next week goes. But as always, if you're new to the channel, if you're seeing us for the first time, think, what is this guy waffling about? You can find us waffling on social media, which is linktree.com/cinemasavvy. That's got links to our Facebook, Twitter, Letterboxd, Instagram, and we've got a Redbubble store for anyone that does want to pick up any merch. But as I said, we are here talking Ahsoka. None of us were on last week, as we sort of said at the beginning. Sam, just your thoughts on part 6, because that was a very blue episode indeed.
Yeah, it was definitely to go from where we went from, which was, as the last time we spoke on here was, it was all Anakin's return and Ahsoka the White, and it ended in I felt very, very good after the end of episode 5. So I feel like episode 6 just had a lot to live up to for a lot of people, because you've gone from being hit with such nostalgia for a lot of people to, okay, we do have to continue the story and look forwards and move forwards. I thought the idea of going to a new galaxy anyway was really interesting. I think Peridia has been an interesting setting for us to go to. The build up to Thrawn, who, although I don't really have that much of a kind of past link to, has been a name that I've known for a very long time. So because I've not seen Rebels properly, I don't really have that full experience of Thrawn. So to see this character come to life, to live action, that on its own was great for me. To have the return of some Night Sisters, especially one that I didn't know was played by Claudia Black, who is, for any sci-fi lovers out there, is a legend. The fact that she was basically the lead, grandmother, great mother. I can't remember if it's grand or great, but she was. I mean, all three of them were excellent, and to just get that eerie, creepy vibe. And after definitely seeing some more episodes of Clone Wars recently, where more Night Sisters have appeared, and after having played, Fallen Order, those Night Sister vibes just came to me immediately, and I love how eerie they are, and I love the visuals that they have. So to get that along with the Chimera and see all those basically broken stormtroopers coming together, Enoch with his gold mask, and to eventually meet Ezra properly, which I loved, and I love him even more after this episode. I think he's such great casting and just great characterization. And yeah, I think it really does lead you. It does leave you wanting more. And I feel like this it is wrapping up. But we know we can't really rest on the series finale, finishing off anything, because we know that there's a film coming up. So I feel like everyone should try and bear that in mind and not expect some doors to be closed, because really I expect most of them to be left open.
Yeah, I'm with you. A great roundup of last week. I love the episodes. We kind of knew we were getting Thrawn, right? He didn't pop up in 5, and we knew, okay, it just has to be 6 if it's not in 5. The way the series had gone, and putting that on it, like, wow. Normally, I wasn't in the office last Wednesday, so I had a little bit of a lie-in. I say lie-in. I got to wake up at 7 a.m. to watch it, and I must say, I've spoke before about, when I've done Star Wars shows, sometimes on my lunch breaks I watch on a computer. So it's like 1080p. Not being a snob, it's not really Star Wars, is it? If there's an office around you and there's a screen you're watching on. But last week I was like, I'm so glad I'm watching this at home, because when the Chimera appeared, a part of me lost myself when I was like, I'm not even overly excited, but to me it was here we fucking go. Like, now we're getting started. Now things are happening. Now things are moving in motion. And the soldiers chanting Thrawn, the music, the walk, Lars Mikkelsen, the voice. As you said, the Night Sisters were like a bonus. Like we expected Thrawn, and we get given Night Sisters. There was so much happening last week. It was a wonderful episode. And as I said, Tate, Jack, and Dave did an amazing job covering it for us. It's nice for us to give our thoughts quickly. And they're going very excited heading in for today. The fact with the return of Ezra Bridger in an episode this stacked of returns, where Captain Enoch's become a legend in the space of a week.
I mean,
I don't want to compare it, but it's like
all over again.
Well, I sort of like the thing about Captain Enoch, right? The Inquisitor, everyone's like, who is he? Captain Enoch, I swear most of it's just been like, he looks fucking cool. And it's also tying into the Roman Empire meme stuff, if anyone's not bored of all that online. How often do I think about the Roman Empire? Well, because I'm into wrestling, unfortunately, every day. But that's a different Roman Empire. But I really enjoyed last week's episode, and I did think there's a lot to cram into last 2. How are they going to do it? And here we are, a week later, a week before the finale, and I'm going to just jump in. My thoughts on today's episode. Love the episode, but there's a lot to do for next week, and Sammy sort of hit the nail on the head there. It's not going to close all the doors. It might shut the door on one galaxy and open up someone being in another. But there's quite a bit of work. Was it 38 minutes roughly today as well? Like, it wasn't the longest of episodes, but I think it's the consistency of this as a series so far. I would say it's more consistent than the 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, them individually. Not Andor, because Andor's the best that there is, probably will ever be, and all that sort of Owen Hart hype. But I was astounded how much, like, when we were doing this, again, I watched this at 2 a.m. today. I got home from the screening last night for the creator. Everyone go watch that when it comes out. I just didn't. I was awake, so I was like, okay, I'll watch it too. And I'm glad I did, because we had everything happen that we thought would happen. I was sitting there like, oh my God, this person's here, this person's here. But I just really enjoyed the episode again. And when we're doing the schedule tonight, ready for the stream, I'm like, I forgot that we had a great sequence of the space whales being bombarded in minefields. Like, how Finding Nemo-esque was that? And it was just a great episode to look back on. And I guess kind of where we're going to headline this, we've got Dave fill in the comments as well. Everyone's talking about C-3PO, which probably one of the smartest cameos I've seen in a while, which we'll get into. But do we want to start with Coruscant and us talking space politics?
I mean, don't we always want to talk about space politics now? Now I feel like it's just really shifted.
I love it. It's so funny that for so many years people like abuse George Lucas. How dare this man do politics in Star Wars? And then they don't do politics in the films. And everyone's like, how dare they not do space politics? Listen, the moment we get Coruscant, and I'm not here to jump on the Dave Filoni hype train. We've been on that train for a very long time now. And this looks, I don't want to come across like Star Wars theory. He did another clanger today, didn't he? Wait, he makes jokes? Yeah, no shit, mate. 4 seasons of Rebels could touch that. Coruscant looked better today. Not better than Andor. The way I'm trying to describe this, it looked like the Phantom Menace's Coruscant. Like, there was something not off, but very prequel-esque era. Like, here's somebody that's going to the prequels to their Coruscant. This isn't a criticism of Andor at all, but like in Andor, we get to go to Coruscant. We get to like spend time there, live with people there, follow storylines there, which is got to see in a whole new environment. But for this one, it felt like the old establishing shots from Star Wars 1, and it felt so like, here's an outside shot, here's some ships flying. Now let's cut inside and have some space politics. What was your thought, I guess, on that whole scene? We'll bring up who pops up, and we've got a certain senator who's become public enemy number 1 as well.
Yes. Well, I mean, I feel like, because I know it was in Coruscant was in The Mandalorian a little bit more as well, and I feel like The Mandalorian did not a better job than Andor, but I feel like it's definitely because of the eras in the Old Republic, then in the Galactic Empire, and then the New Republic. In this way, we're meant to look at Coruscant as kind of like a shining light, a beacon. This is where all the good happens, basically. Is what that establishing shot. Oh,
my bad. We have a message from Phil. It's not Coruscant, it's Chandrila.
Oh, is it really?
That might explain that. Sorry, I'm just trying to get that clarified. This is why we normally have Phil on the streams of this as well. But according to Phil, that is Chandrila.
Great.
I want to double check that because I'm not seeing it on Twitter unless it's just spelled differently. But let's pretend it is. Sorry, Sam. Sorry to interrupt.
No, if it's Chandrila, then great. I love that. I love to see more kind of like major populous, areas in Star Wars. I feel like there's so many times where we go to kind of either barren wastelands or all these places which don't really have, large populations compared to what we do get. So to even see that is great, and it makes sense. We know that the Senate moved, and that with Mon Mothma being Chancellor, it would make the most sense for it to go to Chandrila. But in any case, it's great to have that. In terms of the scene itself and what we got, my thing that I said to George before we went live is that I just love the female politicians in Star Wars. They're so much better than the female politicians in the UK. And if anyone's not been anywhere on social media or anything, that one in particular is getting a lot of stuff happening, but that's their own fault. But in any case, I love Mon Mothma. George knows this anyway. I've said this a lot of times. I feel like she really is trying to balance out her duties, but also her friendships and stuff. And again, kind of like I like Hera's characterization of being headstrong and really fighting for what she believes in and what she knows. And in this case, she knows that Thrawn's in that other galaxy and that there's a very real threat that he could come back. And of course, there's our good friend, Senator Ziono, who is being an absolute arsehole, which is great. I love it because I love that there's, this two different sides, it feels, within the same area. I love that there's that kind of like internal, combat and combustion, but to get the fact that he made Chopper mad made me so mad. It really affected me. It didn't, but I did just think it was really funny. I love that it's Carson, isn't it? I always forget his name. Carson is just trying to like cool down, but it's all good. But I think the scene itself is great, and of course 3PO turns up and it's just like, oh my god, like of course he would pop in.
It's great because Carson's become the Coulson of Star Wars. Like, he is in all these TV shows, and he'll probably meet an untimely death at the demise of Grand Admiral Thrawn in the film, no doubt. And then we'll get the Star Wars Avengers. I'm joking. The scene. So Phil's saying Chandrila is the home of the New Republic Senate before it was moved to Hosnian Prime. I believe that was by 9 ABY. I don't know if this is the year Ahsoka set, but we'll get that clarified. They didn't. I guess that's one thing. Unlike Andor, they didn't stick the name of the planet in the bottom corner of the screen. Unless I was just blind at 2 a.m., which could have been.
No, you weren't. You weren't.
But what's also, I mean, if I were going to really give my thoughts on that, last week they spoke about what Thrawn could do, and I was watching the stream. And I've had an ingenious idea, which it might not work to this transgender stuff. And Dave actually joked about this, but I thought of this before, so I'm annoyed he said it on the stream. We're talking, this is way ahead. This is jumping past next week. Obviously, one of the massive issues of the sequel trilogy is that they created Hosnian Prime to destroy it because they were too cowardice to actually destroy Coruscant. And actually, just be honest, too cowardice to actually have a scene set in Coruscant. Coruscant, quote, survived, and Hosnian Prime was like his next door neighbor. Like, for anyone curious about like geography, that'd be like, I don't know, like nuking Ireland but leaving Northern Ireland alone. Like, it'd be pointless. Don't tell the Irish that though. But I thought it's a really dumb thing. And if they want to engineer the canon, the stories and whatnot, to justify why they're not going to use Coruscant Chandrila in this case, when the Grand Admiral makes his return to the galaxy, just have him bombard and destroy a city. Don't destroy a planet. We've had that a bit too much recently. But just have him come in, make a statement to the politics, and just massacre like one of the capitals. So they have to move their politics to another planet because. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, because I mean, I've watched like clips from like the Bad Batch, for example, and to see kind of a bombardment, which we don't get a lot of in Star Wars because it's all we've got to go bigger. But a bombardment's scary. Like if you're in there, I mean, I know Tapoka City is in like a very isolated place with all the water around, but I mean, to actually see that, and I feel like that would feel probably more Star Wars to a lot of people, you know, and I feel like this a lot with kind of what we've seen, that, you know, that kind of feeling of being in one of like the video games, for example, where you are, you know, I'll take Rogue Squadron as an example. There's a lot of times where you are on world defending places. I think there is a level in the original Rogue Squadron about defending Chandrila from being bombarded by TIE bombers, for example, and that's, you know, a scary prospect. So I feel like there's definitely room for something like that, and I think it would definitely justify Thrawn keeping the Chimera and potentially hooking up with the other, you know, admirals and stuff, and, you know, getting together to do that.
There's a lot they can do and a lot they hope they do with it. And kind of what sticks in line of that for me is the placement of this scene is, okay, if you're going to bring back the space politics, not justify it, but let's see what you want to do. Let's see what they're intending to do with it. And I absolutely loved this. The 3PO cameo is going to go two ways. I think you'll have a certain type of person that's like, which is fine to have this opinion, another legacy character having a cameo in a Star Wars show. And I get that. But in my head, contextually within canon, within story, without stating the obvious, you can't have Princess Leia turn up. I mean, this is the irony, right? The last month, have you seen all the posts, right? You got some people like, you don't have to recast the main tree. You've got these. It's like a picture of like Billy Lord, Alden Ehrenreich, and the guy that does Luke in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
They deepfake him. Sorry, even though he looks exactly like Luke anyway. I've seen that pop up a lot recently. And then this episode was just like, say 3PO's here. Just ends that need to have this discussion that, yes, like Leia could turn up in theory within story, but it makes sense for the scale, for the audience at home. Yeah, we're not going to send Leia. We'll just send her droid because she would send 3PO. That would make sense. And some might think it's a bit on the nose, it's fan service, which it is to a point. But at the end of the day, the series is called Ahsoka. And it made it feel, you know, we know Leia's got this role within the New Republic. And it doesn't make the galaxy feel smaller somewhat, but because she is higher up within the New Republic, she does know Mon Mothma. They do have a relationship. She also knows the Rebels crew to an extent, going back to the first season of Rebels, or second season, sorry, when she has a cameo. I think logically it made absolute sense for C-3PO's turn up. Yes, it's very not childish, but you know, it's like, oh, we've come in to save the day to change it. It wasn't dark, gritty, depressing. It didn't need to be. It served its purpose, and the cameo functions as a cameo should. And it's great also, like, I'm sure we'll get photos in the coming days and weeks. I'd be surprised if that wasn't Anthony Daniels back in the costume. I know he said he'd retired from it with Star Wars 9, but Anthony Daniels will continue to be C-3PO until his final days. And he's even probably joked about that before. And it's great to get him back, right? Like, it's what you want.
Yeah, I mean, he, like, the presence was there. I mean, you hear the voice alone, and that kind of like does something. And to see him in his shining gold glory is fantastic. And it made sense, I guess. I like it for what it is, but I mean, from a logical perspective, well, I say logical perspective, if 3PO's there on world, you would expect Leia to be there in my head. So it would make and based on what Hera and Mon Mothma have said about Leia, it would make me believe that they have, a close rapport at least, and that they all get on, and that really Leia would want to defend Hera.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that there's not an easy answer to how to do that, and I think 3PO is a nice kind of middle ground to that, being like, right, okay, we can do that. This works. It'll be nice for people. It's 3PO in another piece of Star Wars media, and we need to get as many of those ticked off as possible, apparently, to make sure that he's in anything and everything. But that's really not me being mad at it or criticizing it too much. I do think it's a good idea. I probably wish story-wise that Leia would have been there. But I mean, and also, I guess I kind of just want to see Leia in that era a bit more. I feel like I would like to see her as a senator in the New Republic, and what that life entails. I feel like when people go on about kind of reusing characters and not stepping away, there's a lot that happens in all these decades, years that everything takes place within this kind of 30, 40 year, time frame that we've got most of these films, that we only see kind of a small section of it. And especially when these characters change so much, it would be great to see them in different roles. So Leia as a senator and mother, similar to Hera, I suppose they'd probably both can bond over that. To me, I just feel like there's things there, but obviously it's just not easy. So yeah, very happy with 3PO being there. Probably would have loved to have had Leia, but again, I don't have an answer to how best they would have done that.
Absolutely. And we'll end this Coruscant debate. Why am I saying Coruscant? We have confirmation, thanks to Dave, who has sent me a message, a screenshot of the episode with subtitles on. You and Ahsoka Tano are to return to Coruscant with the fleet. So we can confirm that it is on Coruscant indeed. So apologies to anyone. We've got that little 5-minute thing going. I'm sure it'll be funny in retrospect. But aside from Coruscant, we've got to jump to the lead character. This is the series Ahsoka. It's always nice to open up without the lead. I know that's always really strange. Some people like fuming that she was only in one scene in episode 5. No, last week. She was in one scene last week. That was it. Sorry, ignore me.
People comparing it to Book of Boba Fett like that. Being like, oh, God.
Stupid. I have seen some funny jokes, though, and it's like part 7 of Ahsoka, Disney has the funniest thing. And it's it was like just a photo of the Mandalorian going through the butchery again.
Oh, yeah.
But like last week, you didn't need Ahsoka because the character's traveling. So you can spend time with everyone else and move the plot forward in a really smart and energetic way, which getting to today comes full circle. It's like poetry rhymes. Guess what? Ahsoka's first scene is then basically coming out of hyperspace. Technically, her first scene is with the return. If you didn't think C-3PO coming back was a big deal, for the 3rd episode this season, Hayden Christensen reappears as Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars armor, and even better than that, in a training hologram, to which we get some great moments for both Ahsoka's counterpart and Anakin's. We've got David Tennant, who I'm going to give a massive shout out for this series. I know he's only in a voice role, and I know it's David Tennant. He has a certain gravitas because of obviously his incredible career. But in this role, I did not ever expect we'd have him as like a key member, that he almost is the 3rd lead after Sabine and Ahsoka. That if you look at the context, and again, I know it's a voice role. I know people could say he might have done this for a day or two at home, but the fact they got him back, he was willing to participate for a character he played, 10+ years ago for 3 episodes, probably a day of work. Maybe it's a day of work for this whole series, who knows? But it's been really great getting him on, and what I kind of love is his relationship with Ahsoka, and this scene in particular, when he sort of comes and just watches Anakin. There's no comments about Vader, whether he would know it or not, but I loved that the name Vader has not been mentioned once, I think, in this series so far. I know obviously we had the bits in the World Between Worlds with them, but I don't think it's been named. And I love that. I feel personally it's building up. We're talking a bit about Thrawn's reaction because that's become like an insane meme online already. But the train sequence kind of gave me echoes. Now, I know you've not watched all of Clone Wars. Did you get to watch Tales of the Jedi? I don't know if you would have or not.
No, because I wanted to watch that after Clone Wars.
Makes sense.
But I have seen the first. I saw the first episode because I just wanted to see, because I knew it was Ahsoka themed, and I was like, I wanted to just watch the first to just see how it was, which I thought was really interesting. I really enjoyed the episode, so of course I will go back and watch the full series. But
so what? Without giving it away, one of the episodes in Tales of the Jedi is like a training scene of Anakin and Ahsoka, and that kind of justifies not how she survived Order 66, but it gives a lot of context to something that happens at the end of Clone Wars. And this moment in this scene, Anakin's in person in that episode, but this scene further that I love that they're talking about his relationship. That she's like, he recorded like 20 or more of these, but this is the last one I ever received from him. And I love that they really built this relationship well. And it was just like, again, yeah, it's fan service, but this show is really building up Anakin now, where personally, I know it had been leading to Thrawn, and it still clearly is leading to Thrawn for next week. Last week, obviously, Thrawn says, find out who her master is. The moment he said that, we kind of knew there's something else in play. And I've not read. There's 3 Thrawn trilogies now. You've got the original trilogy from the 90s, which is no longer canon. Then there was the first, all Timothy's on. The trilogy that was as Rebels came out, which was him rising the ranks of the Empire. And then they did another trilogy recently where it was like, not him in the Clone Wars, and I've not read them, so I can't go off that, but there was a scene that they used to market the book, which was Anakin with Thrawn. So that they'd worked with each other within the Clone Wars. So the part of me is thinking in my head that how long has Star Wars known that they'd tee up Thrawn being not just like in a live action counterpoint, but they really wanted to build his history with the Clone Wars. Because what I loved last week was when he's talking about Balin's skull, when he's doing his research, and even today he's got like Inquisitorious files, which was sort of great. I love that Anakin's not just fan service at this point; he's actually playing a very important role. In the same way Qui-Gon did in Kenobi, that like the absent master still had a character impact. I sort of wondered what your moment was, because also I'm not gonna like Hayden came up and I was just off my head again, buzzing like Hayden's back again.
Yeah, in my mind, I was like, how the hell did they get these recordings? How these survived? Like, so I mean, that was kind of like in my mind, but at the same time, I was like, okay, well, do you know what? I'm like, we'll suspend the disbelief here. It's great to see him again in the master role. I think with everything, again, to go back to kind of like the fan service things, all of this stuff to me is one, helping this story, but I think it's also making sure that there's more connections. I feel like for a lot of people, there's disconnects between the prequels and the original trilogy, and same with original trilogy to sequels, maybe less. But then, how do you get from, as an overarching thing, from the prequels to the sequels? And I think to have characters that thread the line between films and kind of connects that way makes the world. It actually does make it feel bigger, because we're not just isolating things, being like, oh, this happened in this time and nothing outside of this exists, outside of this bubble. So to have characters that transcend it, I think is really interesting. I think it's really crucial, actually, to making the story work, and to make, when the emotional beats happen, make them really hit. And I think it helps mostly the general audience, which I think this is what it's designed to do. Right? A name drop like Asajj Ventress is great for people who know who that is. But then for a general audience, ask questions. Oh, we know who Grievous is. We know who Count Dooku is. Who's Asajj Ventress? I first knew of Asajj Ventress when I was like 9 years old. So to hear her name in live action for the first time in 2023 is a big deal. So no, but I love the train sequence. I like that Ahsoka is practicing. I think it's always good to show that no matter what stage you are, you're still learning, and you still kind of have to hone in your craft. In this case, it's her lightsaber skills that she's very attuned to. We see later on that lightsabers are not the be all and end all of the Jedi, regardless of what Obi-Wan said, that this is your life. There is more to being a Jedi than just using lightsabers. But in Ahsoka's case, she was brought up on utilizing those. So it makes sense to have her train. And just to echo what you said about David Tennant and Hu Yang, I think excellent. Again, for someone who's not got that relationship with Hu Yang at all, I'm so surprised by this character and just how layered he is. Really, again, for a droid is difficult to do, I think. But we know how old how old Hu Yang is and what he's seen, and that he still works to the ways of old, but is learning through being with Ahsoka and doing these things that are outside of the normal way. So yeah, I do love their relationship. I really like the vibes from that.
Yeah, and I think one thing with Hu Yang, which is I think kind of underrated in its own respects, because almost every Star Wars series you get an R2 unit, you get a protocol droid. I know he's a protocol droid of kinds, but it's not like a silver C-3PO, is it? It's not. And for intended purposes, the general audience, they just see a droid and they'll think it's just an R2-D2, it's just this or that. Hu Yang's got a distinctly different vibe, and I like that his history, his knowledge is really important to his character and his relationship with Ahsoka. But at the same time, it is something new. And what I've kind of loved watching him is I'm sure there'll be more behind the scenes when the series is done. I'm sure they'll do documentaries, they always do. He looks practical at this point in time. I don't know if it's a mixture of CG plus a practical droid when it's like sat down, like when it's on the ship and you're getting close-ups of it. I'm there like, can this be CG? So I'm very curious to get behind the scenes on, because I would say that they kept this series massively under wraps. Very few things leaked compared to your Mandalorian and the other ones. I know that leak culture has become a massive issue within Hollywood. I know that you don't get it more so with the UK crews, which is why more and more things keep coming to the UK. But very much we need a better name for it, the Mandalorian universe. Or we're going to end up calling it like the Thrawn saga, maybe. I don't know. Heirs to the Empire, probably the name of the film.
Did they show in that timeline? What was the name? Was it just New Republic, or was it the Rise of the First Order? Or no, it wasn't that.
It's got an official era name, but for intents and purposes, it's I can't remember now. Every single one had like a cheesy. I think it's just called the New Republic. You've got like Age of the Rebellion, which just is a posh way to say the original trilogy, and then this is the New Republic.
Yeah. Although we missed actually was in Coruscant, there's mention of Mandalore.
Yes, there is.
And so I mean, I thought that
Gideon.
And give Gideon. So I think it's good again to kind of link those back. Right, okay, we are kind of in that similar time frame. That must have happened fairly recently. Which I think matches with Carson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing to bring that up, actually, I don't know if this was Twitter or if it was the guys in the stream last week. They're all sort of not mocking Gideon, but when we're at Celebration and they do the screening and Moff Gideon's like, enough about Grand Admiral Thrawn, I'm basically going to lead this new empire.
Look at me.
Yeah. That's really funny now, like 6 months later. Not as a discredit to... oh my God, I've forgotten... dear me, I've forgotten his name. That's embarrassing.
Espinosa?
Yes. Yeah, sorry. It's not disrespecting him as an actor, but like the character of Gideon is so funny. Like this guy thought he would be better than Thrawn, and he had like one fucking ship and was getting jumpy because he had a Darksaber for a couple of years. Every single thing about this series is not doing a disservice to The Mandalorian, but because it's clear the intention of the series is first and foremost to bring Grand Admiral Thrawn to the galaxy again to set up this film or new universe or new era. I'm loving that it's just made Moff Gideon look more of an idiot. But I like that there is this, you go back to that Shadow Council scene when like they were murmuring Thrawn's name, and now we're in the stage where he is coming back. He's got his own army chanting his name with his great entrance music. And just Lars Mikkelsen again. We'll talk about Lars shortly, but that same scene when Genevieve Riley also takes Hera aside, saying, "Do we genuinely think this is going to happen?" And it's starting to kick in. Like, yeah, it's going to happen, love. Like,
but it's a two-way thing, isn't it? I mean, it shows that Moff Gideon was kind of maybe, I guess, bigging himself up too much, but it also makes you realize that the awful things that he did and his transgressions were practically nothing compared to Thrawn, based on what people are saying and how people are acting about it. So I think it's a good way of doing that in a way that's not super obvious, but I think once it makes sense to go, oh right, okay, this guy is going to be bad. And yeah, Thrawn is just is so intelligent. I can't even. I'm so drawn to. I think dialogue is key for his character, and everything that he says is just chef's kiss. I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I know.
Not
apologies. No, because part of me, honestly, I could just do a video talking about how I wish I had Lars Mikkelsen's Thrawn voice to just use in my daily life. That'd be so fun. Because every time you say something, you just sound more intelligent than what you are. But one of the things I sort of wanted to speak about within that is also the coming up hyperspace scene. The fact last week, he made the comment saying, destroy the wells without prejudice. I loved the sequence of them coming out of the hyperspace because this then moves into the episode, to me being Thrawn's episode, that, okay, last week the people have been introduced to this big bad guy. They've been talking about it for a while. And again, it doesn't affect those that have watched Rebels, those that have read books. Don't tell your audience he's intimidating, he's a threat. Show them what he can do. And today was almost like Thrawn's game of chess. And I know it technically jumps the ending where it sort of puts it in black and white. And I know that some people have been laughing about how they're using certain characters around him in the same way. Apologies, I can't remember. Did you watch all of Rebels or not?
No, I've not. No,
I thought so. Sorry, I'm getting. There are so many people, and I keep forgetting who's seen what and who hasn't seen what. In Rebels, he very much has a supporting character by his side, and that character is basically like, how do you say it? She will ask a stupid question, so the audience can in turn have his genius explanation read out loud, so we can sort of follow his movements. And they've kind of started doing that with Dan Simoto with this.
With
and
Morgan. With Morgan.
Yeah, Morgan Elsbeth. Yeah, how she's been today. Like, but why do this? And it's like, let's just bring in some intelligence, please. And that's him explaining to the audience how it works. And I really like it. I like that sort of stuff. Some people don't. But again, you've got to show and tell the people why he's feared, why he does what he does. And the hyperspace bit with the whales, I loved, because we've not really seen, like, you see the explosion thing, is it's going to be like bombers or something, or we're going to finally get TIE Defenders, which were a vehicle from Rebels that haven't been done live action. They still haven't been done live action.
There's still time.
Well, some people thought they could be on the ship. But I did see when those mines started coming, I was like, we've never seen this in Star Wars. And it's a very real thing. One thing it took me years of my life to figure out is that Star Wars is basically just Navy, right? Space battles are just like literal ships that would be on water. It took me like 20 years to work this out. And it's really embarrassing. Obviously, in charted waters around the world, you do have like those mines that, they travel through, the bombs go off. And I just loved it. It was something simplistic and new. And it worked to great effect in this sequence that we need to now get the whales out of the story. Let's not massacre them all, although none did die. I love they were just like going through, like it was affecting them, but not to the point that they're not going to reach that service. And it's a great way to, again, set up Thrawn's tactical knowledge of he's going to set the trap. He's going to wait to exploit it. And even as a simplistic space battle of sorts to get Ahsoka, again, we're getting to see her maneuver, her ability. This bit starts, it's really hard structure in this review because I want to talk about Ahsoka, I want to talk about Thrawn, and it's really hard not to just talk about Thrawn 24/7. But I love that he's got his sort of battle map, that he's figuring this game out. And I guess at this point, we can say this is the moment where he finds out that she was the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. I did wonder, how's a blue man gonna show emotion? But when he's reading the file and he's like, General Anakin Skywalker, like she's the apprentice of. Obviously, we know that he's not that if you read the book, I've not read the book. I know that he's Anakin, but his reading out of that name is enough for Thrawn to be somewhat. If he's not going to show it, he will be concerned. Like, shit, this is the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. Like, I cannot do what I would do normally to basically destroy them. And I loved how he solved that moment. You sent me the great Pikachu meme. But it was the shocked Pikachu face. And he did pull a face out that he was shocked, like, probably like all the older people, like Anakin had an apprentice. Like, that's the thing. Like, you still got to sell that to the general public. And What were your thoughts on, I guess, Thrawn's plan? Again, I'm zigzagging all over the place. It's been a long day, but just your thoughts on the space battle, his plan, and I guess that revelation to him at least.
Yeah, I mean, in the last episode where he said, "Well, basically, he's basically the audience. We've not seen a body, so she could be after us. So I'm gonna, put a plan in motion here just in case." So one, very clever for that. Two, I feel like Star Wars works a lot when it uses influences from whether it's complete historical past or if it's more modern history. But in terms of warfare, the mines is kind of a great way to showcase military warfare. To have so many, I think, was kind of insane to have that many mines. But it just showed that Thrawn didn't want to take any chances just in case. And I feel like he's impressed by Ahsoka's abilities to, can move forwards. And I think then that links with Anakin, who, was well known for kind of being, the greatest Jedi of his time. It's stated a few times. What I love is Ahsoka's kind of confidence and charisma. You really see the difference between the beginning of this series compared to now, where it really feels like I'm just doing it and this is how it's going to go. And she knows that she's good and she knows she can do it. And you see that in Rosario's performance and what she's doing. I feel like there's still kind of some criticism about her performance, but I really feel like it's part of the story and what she was doing to now what she's actively doing now. To me, that makes sense from a story perspective for this arc that she's gone through. But yeah, I love the little chase sequence, the hiding in the graveyard. I mean, it's very Attack of the Clones, Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
The idea of that being a graveyard anyway was just, I think, kind of something that I would have thought of, but it also makes complete sense within the context of this world, where basically it feels like anything can happen. There's so many different things that we as humans on planet Earth probably wouldn't even think of in 1,000 years. I mean, these writers did, Dave Filoni did, but yeah, great. And I think, the link to Anakin, I think, again, it helps viewers a bit more, even though we've had that other episode where we've had Anakin and Ahsoka interact. It's great to see Thrawn just be a little bit hesitant, not scared, but it allows him to kind of recalibrate his thoughts and go, right, okay, this isn't just a Jedi from before the Empire. This is Anakin's apprentice. So if she's learned half of what he knew, then this could be a big issue. Yeah.
I really like how sort of erratic it comes across as well, that he's known Anakin and he sort of is saying that anything could happen, so we need to prepare for sort of any scenario. And I like that as well. And I do like that we actually got a bit more context that how would people find out about these fallen Jedi? Like, again, when he's got the records on Balon's skull, when they said last week, he's like, did Thrawn know who he was? But then the fact is, like, it's a little detail. Oh, the Inquisitor's file. I love that the Inquisitors have got like files detailing like all the Jedi Order. Don't know if it's meant to be survivors. Don't know if it's just every Jedi ever. If it's from the archives, maybe. But there's
probably a full log that's like missing, dead, missing, unknown.
And it's things like that I just think is very cool, and it makes sense. Like, it makes sense that to have existed and been a thing. And Thrawn coming into that is always a big part of, again, his knowledge is what wins in these battles. And this whole episode is his trap that we never knew was a trap from the get-go. You really, really drill it down. He's just stalling for time. And if we want to talk about other things, we've got to talk about Ezra Bridger, who returns. In the most Star Wars Rebels-esque way back, bumper cars featuring the I'm just going to call them the Ninja Turtles.
The knotted, the knotted.
Call them Hobbit Turtles, whatever you want to call them. I've got a burning desire, which I said to you earlier, is I just need to know about the rocks on their back. Are they born with the rocks? Are they like crabs where they can just drop them off and get upgrades? Because I need to know how they get dressed. And that sounds so wrong. It is like they have these amazing little outfits. So my theory then becomes, are these creatures, they have like shops? Do they make them themselves? But do they only make a front part of an outfit? Like, is it the shell and it just goes over the shoulders like it's strapped on?
It's like,
So
well, I'll put yours on, you put mine on. I can't get around the back, so it's just gonna be placing it on like an old, well, you probably won't know, but like it's like those old like cut out dresses and things that would be targeted at like I remember like my sister had some, like my cousins had them where you just stick them on to like a cutout of a person and stick them on the front, so there's no back to them, but you just have the front. That's all I could think of. That was close, but I'm fairly in the camp of they're born with the rock. On them.
Yeah, and I like and the fact they drive bumper cars. And we were saying from live, like this is the ultimate Disneyland ride now. Just your generic bumper cars at every land you ever see, but they're just done as these Ninja Turtle shells, and people will play them. Even the way Ezra was driving it has a gear stick. When did he learn to drive?
I don't.
Not that that's the thing. Them. That's not a criticism. Yeah, and I love it. They're just chilling them. Like. It's like gypsies with engines, not like the is it like the Romanian ones where you get like wooden carriages of horses still. It's sort of like that, but they're rocks and they drive them around. And even when it got to the action, I was like, in 90% of Star Wars things, these guys are going to get massacred really unfairly, like the Book of Boba Fett and Tusken Raiders. But these guys, they've got like Batmobile-esque armor here, like locking up shop, no one can get to them. And the inevitable one little turtle that's ship gets destroyed. They all just go back to him and help him. I thought it's really cute. And you know what? Like, I know people can say what they want to say about Filoni. It felt like a live action sort of Rebels and Clone Wars type thing. That's the sort of stuff people would call filler, which it can be in these animated shows. But at the same time, the primary purpose of those shows were also to be kid shows, not for like 18-plus-year-old Star Wars fans. So
it's family friendly. It's for everyone. You can watch this with your kids. Your kids can watch it with you. It's
and they'll love that, and I want one. I want a little pet one to go on my desk. I can just look at.
I really want them to take them all back. I'm sure they're happy on their home world of Peridea, but I mean,
send them to Endor to live with the Ewoks in peace.
Yeah, I mean, would I say better than? No, I can't say they're better than the Ewoks, but I mean, I have a great deal of time for these new aliens. People have complained about the lack of alien species. And it's like, here you go. We're going to give you the cutest, weirdest turtle things you're going to see. And Ezra's their kind of human confidant who's protecting them. And I love that. Part of me just wants to leave Ezra, but like, do you know what? You're happy here. Like, you protect these guys. I don't want them to die and be killed by some weird... were they called night troopers? I feel like
calling them night troopers. Yeah, that's what the name is at the moment, which is great. I know it was in the subtitles last week, and we're starting to get a bit more knowledge now. But it's very exciting. It's very exciting. It's not just I'm not saying we're bored of stormtroopers, but it's just great to see a bit of variety. And it was and that's what Disney's done well with the era as such. Like I go back to Rogue One. When like here's the assault tank troopers, here's these troopers, here's the shore troopers, and I like that we're able to get a bit more sort of things in there. And I've seen some people moaning about Captain Enoch's mask, and I'm like, it's just the assault tank trooper, just with the face paint on. They're moaning that it's not the stormtrooper black circle, but I was like, it's not a stormtrooper helmet; it's a modified. Not to get sad about helmets, but the whole Ezra sequence. I mean, if we want to talk about this, we've got a big moment of Ezra. We've got him and Sabine just catching up, and again, like. I'm not showing this series with my dad yet, but I do wonder about the general audience who haven't watched Rebels, how these scenes go down. I mean, technically, you are part of that. You know a bit more than most who wouldn't have watched it, but I did want to know, like, when they're catching up about old times gone, did you feel like you were fine? Like, how do you think that would go down someone that's never seen a second of Rebels? If I'm being honest, it's I can't really advise on that because I've seen it multiple times.
Yeah, I feel okay with it. I mean, how many shows have you watched, films that you've watched where you've seen characters who we've not seen interact before meet up and go, oh, do you remember those old times that we had and all of that? Like, to me, this is just for general audiences who don't know these characters. I can imagine that most would be fine with it. It's already established that they've got a past. We saw in like the first episode that Sabine wanted to find Ezra, had the hologram, and yes, they've connected. End of last episode, they're speaking. They mentioned things that they will know, like Palpatine and Endor, and then some of the other Rebels characters like Zeb. So I mean, I think there's a good balance of things in there. That there's things that people will know and things that they won't. But I feel like overall, it's about showcasing the bond between these two characters, and luckily for the actors, they're able to do it. I don't know. I've not seen that connection in Rebels, so I can't say that they kind of did a very good job of that. But they did a great job to me in just making sure that we feel that these characters have got a past and that they're close to each other and that they can talk to each other. So I think that's the main thing.
Excellent. And kind of sticking on that, the scenes we obviously get is we get a big action scene that follows. And I think everyone's waiting for the moment Ezra Bridger picks up his lightsaber again. Without jumping the gun with the Shin-Hati, yes, we could talk about her, thank God. We get a really interesting standoff finale where we do get an action sequence, but it is very much Ezra's going to make allegiance with the Force rather than with the lightsaber, which I really liked because we've not seen him for 10 plus years. And again, going back to the general audience comment, they can't be told this guy's a Jedi. They need to see something. So for him to do an action set piece without picking up a lightsaber once, using the Force, some really funny memes though. When it's again, like I know I keep bringing up memes, but the first time I saw it, this was on like 3 before I went to bed. It was like Ezra's like, "Don't worry, I've got allegiance with the Force," and it cuts to American Psycho when Patrick Bateman just grabs out the gun and just shoots the guy at the desk like for no reason. And it was like that's kind of exactly how it went. But again, they're demonstrating to the public that this is a Jedi. He's got his wisdom. You don't need to see him with the lightsaber yet. And I'm sure they will build up to when he eventually does go for the lightsaber blade, which will be, based on how Filoni does that sort of thing, probably a great moment.
Because there was another meme actually of someone created and was posting everywhere under every single tweet. That's why I was like, okay, you need to give it a rest now. And it was putting Sabine's face over Rey's and putting Ezra's face over Luke's. And I'm like, that's so like not the same. Like I understand from the highest point possible, yes, it's to do with a lightsaber. They both say no. But Ezra says no for a completely different reason. And, he's not used one in so long in his... I mean, in my mind, I was like, okay, is this going to be like Mace Windu in the original Clone Wars? And he's just going to like batter them. And just, I was like, I knew it wasn't going to be that, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, that would have been epic. But I mean, it was still pretty good to see Ezra be like, you know what, I'm cool, I'm good. Other people complained, oh, but he picked up a blaster after 5 minutes. I was like, well, I mean, he's using what's around him. And he's just saying that he doesn't need to rely on the lightsaber. I think, to me, that's what I got from this whole sequence, is that a Jedi doesn't need to be relying on this one weapon to survive and to defend themselves. Utilize the Force, utilize things around you. And also, like he said, he gave the lightsaber to Sabine. He doesn't need. If she's been training, he would want her to use it now. So yeah, I think it made sense for him where he is. I mean, he seems very calm and collected and very at one with himself. Never mind the Force. So. And he did, and apart from being knocked by Shin-Hati that one time, I think he did pretty well.
Yeah, put him on the thumbnail because
exactly.
Listen, I'll say what I've said about Episode 9 in the past. The lightsaber duel where they're using the Force to stop the blades. I've loved that with Star Wars. The visual image of the Force pushing the actual bits out the saber, I just love. So I'm so glad we got that, and kind of I guess preluding this thing, because I mentioned we're all over the place, we're sort of going with the characters as such. The Balon school stuff is getting really intriguing now that I know we say every week that it is a massive tragedy lost racism, which it's hard not to talk about it. As we get nearer to the end of the series, it's kind of more upsetting in the sense that we're heading towards one of his final on-screen appearances. And let's take stars out of this for a massive moment. This is like an actor who's worked on varying levels of TV, film, blockbusters, non-blockbusters across his career. And I would genuinely say, not as discredit to anything else he's been in, Balon School could go down as his most iconic role. And this almost played the Punisher. And to lose him, not just after a show's finished airing, but for him to have never been able to watch these episodes back.
Yeah. To get the reaction,
Exactly. To see what people are saying. And I know some dickhead could put, but there's strikes on. That doesn't matter. These actors would have still been looking at the reaction every week.
Yeah.
They just
people
can't.
Hear and say.
Yeah, they just can't comment on it. And when he was at Celebration, he was so buzzing at that panel. that he was excited to be part of it. And as we're getting to the end, and I'm not saying because he's passed away, because some twat somewhere would probably just jump on that bandwagon and say it's overhyped because of this. It's not at all. They've created in 7 episodes one of the most ambiguous characters in a series where we can talk about predictability, that Thrawn's going to end up coming back to the galaxy, that XYZ is going to survive. We're going to find A, B, and C. He has been the opening scene of the series, has been him on his quest, and we still don't know what he's looking for on this planet, what his goal is. And this week we've seen him now leave his Padawan, basically telling her, and this is what I love, because there's this enigma around not just his performance but through his like vocals as well, that last week's thing about I'm sure you sent it to me, right, the meme of I missed the idea of it. That's become a situation meme now. It's been very, very, I've seen a lot of different versions of using the content, but I love it.
I will say, me and George share a lot of Star Wars memes with each other.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot, but I mean, it helps a lot. And sometimes you figure things out, and I'll think about things a bit more. As funny as that.
And it's interesting getting other people's like thoughts on it and how they read situations. And I remember playing Skull. I can tell you this: we're a week away from the finale. Don't know what on earth he's going to do. He has a little duel with Ahsoka, but it's all part of their strategy to get past him. He's left his Padawan, so he's going somewhere. And I love the fact that Thrawn is on it. It's like, we're one person down. Like, what does he call him? Lord Balin's School, doesn't he? That's what he calls him by title. And I love that Thrawn's thinking, is there something else on this planet? Like, Thrawn will be ticking in his head, like, why has he come all this way and now he's not helping when he's a mercenary? So I'm very curious what's going to happen. My question to you is, and this is a bit, I don't mean this to sound morbid, I hope it doesn't come across as morbid. Do we think Baylan School's character arc is going to be complete next week, i.e. that character is going to have his journey complete? Or do you think it was something they originally planned out that will be in a status of TBC because of obvious reasons we can't go into?
Yeah. I'm so torn, because in some ways it feels like in order for the film to not be successful, but in order for the film to work, some of the villains that are here now need to drop. And I feel like Baylan Skull would be kind of the one where it's like keys for the TV series, and that Thrawn is going to have a wider berth, basically, because it
Shin Hati in IMAX.
yeah. But it makes more sense. But to me, that makes sense. But on the other hand, there's so much that we don't know that it feels like, how are they going to wrap it up in the next episode? I mean, they don't necessarily need to. He could be killed off as a character, and we find out some things, but we don't know everything. We as an audience don't need to know everything. We obviously want to, but I'm so unsure about where his story is going, what his goal is, what he's trying to do. I know he had a little bit of a monologue in the last episode, and I feel like that you just watch him. He's so interesting to watch. It is such a shame. I would have loved to have seen him do more. If he does survive, if the character survives the show, I would love to see more of the character. And I feel like it would be a waste to not continue the character on. But Ray Stevenson did a brilliant job. It's just very, very tragic. But I'm just so glad that the majority of people are thinking the same. You're right about how the first sequence was him. The fact that he would let Shin go, basically be like, right, well, you've got options open to you. This is it. You go off and do it. But I think it now gives Shin an opportunity. Because I feel like we just don't know that much about her at all. Whereas with Baylan, we've got a good sense of what he's like as a character and what his kind of values are. With Shin, she is a Padawan. We don't know too much about her backstory. Not that we know much more about Baylan's, but I think it's an interesting choice to have them split up, and I don't really know where that will leave both of them by the end of the next episode. Shin, I feel like, has opportunities that perhaps Baylan doesn't. Or she could just be cannon fodder, which I know you don't want to hear. But but we just don't know. And I think that's the great thing about this series. I feel like there's so many kind of ways that these characters could exit this series because we know that there's something else that's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm also intrigued by with it, that because it's so open what they could do with it, we don't know. We don't know the structure of them leading to the film. We know there's a film. We don't know how many films. We don't know how many shows are going to come out between now and then. We don't know if Mandalorian is going to get season 4, but we don't know if there's an Ahsoka season 2, if it's a mini series, and then it's the Thrawn film. So there's a lot that we're not going to hear about. Obviously, with Hollywood, we've got the fantastic news that the writer's strike has officially ended today. There is still a massive battle to be won for the SAG. Mm-hmm. And I know that the writers aren't necessarily going back to work, that they do have it, that they can pick it with the SAG still. So it is great the strike is over. I'm sure people like Filoni, not saying that they'd be like scabbing, but there'll be a lot of writers who would have been working during the strike, just not officially. Likely non-IP people.
A lot, especially planning and kind of putting ideas, they're just not
going
together.
They're not going to work. This will be stuff they would have done at home on the drawing board. And someone like Filoni who's probably mapped ahead years anyway. Everything is not in doubt, but timelines are no doubt not as they would have been before. Not Star Wars timelines, industry timelines. So, yeah, I'm with you. Like the Baron Skull stuff, it is sort of tragic. So I do hope, and I feel that the reaction to this character, if his story is left open and they do recast down the line, then do go for it and do it with the purpose of honouring his performance, which is the best way to recast an actor. If his story arc is complete next week, which I do think it is going to be for him, and I've thought this from the get-go that we won't get him past the first season, then I would love for them to do... I don't read the books, but a book, Tales of the Jedi, we've mentioned on the channel before. Yeah. This is a character that I think people are going to want to see more of fleshed out. And this is where your expanded universe stuff really does come in clutch, that you can delve into people's backstories. You can do more with them. You can do a comic series. And I think it compensates characters like this rather than just... My issue with canon is that because we know that live action TV and live action film eradicates... It's like a pyramid system, right? The priority at the top is film, then TV, then it's animated, then it's games, then it's comics, then it's books. It's
one of like those like unspoken rules or whatever, like in terms of money and what, you know, I'll just say Hollywood, but I mean in terms of filmmaking and production. Yeah.
Like George Lucas said from day one, the expanded universe has never been canon. George Lucas said that from day one. He told Filoni
because it was that went around a few days ago, didn't it? That, you know, a lot of people were sharing that.
Because there was already one Clone Wars before the Clone Wars we know now. So, you know, there was nothing ever off the table. And they've done that with this new canon. And I think for me, at least, how I've always envisioned how they should do it, use the expanded universe to tell character stories before. Don't go into new eras. Don't try and plug in gaps, because then they're back themselves into corners. But Star Wars' credit, they've always had the balls to say, actually, what we pick in live action is canon, not what the page says 10 years ago. So that's my 2 cents on that, and that's going to upset some people. But kind of sticking back to this, moving on from Balin, very quickly we'll mention the last bit before we get to the ending and start talking about next week, because I know sort of zigzagged over. Ahsoka tries to recruit Shin-Hati. And I love this moment where Thrawn's going through his plan. And he's like, well, my plan has succeeded. I've been able to officially transport the cargo, and the only thing they have done is cost themselves their own time with all this. Pulls the troopers out straight back to the little gunship transport ship things, which I think is the first time they've been live action. I could be wrong. Can't remember, they might have been in Andor, maybe. But I do remember them from Rebels a lot. So it was great to get them in live action. But I love that, again, the whole episode was Thrawn's plan. Simple as. Now, the general audience has seen this so-called Grand Admiral, this guy people are scared of, basically doing a whole episode, which was just him saying, I set a trap. They executed every part of it. Now my objective's done. Let's get the fuck out of here. Let's go home to a point. And that leaves some wide doors open for next week. But I did like the fact that Ahsoka did try and recruit Shin-Hati to a team. And there was this moment of doubt, and this is why I'm very curious moving forward with this storyline. If Balon has left Shin-Hati, is Shin-Hati going back to Thrawn? Is she going to look for Balon's school? Is Shin-Hati going to try and take down her master to like avenge him? To not avenge him, but you know the rule of two. There's so much potential for so many characters next week. I think we need a long episode for the finale. Not us talking it. I think, if I'm being really honest, I think the finale got to be an hour without credits, right? There's a lot for them to look into and tie up.
Yeah, I in terms of just the Thrawn's plan, really quickly, I think that point where he finds out that she's Anakin's apprentice kind of like switches. Oh, we can kill her too. Oh, right, we need to just kind of, get her out of the way as much as possible so I can get my stuff done. So I feel like I like that shift anyway. The Shin stuff, I feel like Ahsoka, especially after watch this happen with Anakin in the World Between Worlds, I feel like she probably would have done so anyway, but she's much more open to trying to help and to kind of get someone on side of it. And we know that she's interacted with Luke. Luke's probably spoken about, Vader's turn back to the light. She probably is more hopeful because of that there's opportunity for that no one's lost completely. And Shin's relatively young, a Padawan, has had Baylan to rely on. If she's on her own, it could be opportunity to kind of give her a chance. She's gone away, but to me, she doesn't have allegiance with anyone else. Her allegiance was to Baylan, and without that, she, to me, would be lost. Which I can imagine if you were an apprentice and have been with one person, you've been doing what they've said. Once that's gone, what do you do? So it'll be good if the next episode can give her a little bit of time to kind of at least allow the audience to kind of, understand with her and decide help what she's going to do, decide what she's going to do. But we are left at a point where I feel like then I guess our main characters reaching the Chimera, trying to get to it before it leaves, which I will imagine it's going to utilize the ring to get out of there. And then, I guess any of the New Republic stuff, because we've got to see some of those characters. I can't believe that we'd end on that first scene at the beginning of the episode, and that would be it for these characters. They need some time. Anything to do with Thrawn, he's going to have time. So there's a lot to do, but we know that things going to be left open. I'm not going to say predictions or anything yet, but
I'm kind of with you that I love doing predictions and I don't, because I'm very excited just to see how they do it anyway. And that's how I always feel about stuff like this. There's a lot. I completely forgot the New Republic stuff. We need to have some sort of closure to Hera. Whether we get anything with Jason, I don't know. We almost have. And again, I'm not just going to do a prediction of it, but I still think the ending of the series is going to be Thrawn arriving into the main galaxy via hyperspace, like final shot, Chimera arriving, or something along those lines. Could be massively wrong. Could be in the first 10 minutes next week. There is only one image from marketing that's not been used, and I saw this today and I was like, fuck's sake. The image of Thrawn walking onto this he's coming down the Vader shuttle, and there's a behind the shoulder shot of him. Remember the first image, which was like him going into that lovely little throne room, not throne room, the room on the big ring ship. I forgot the name of it. The big hyperspace circle thing.
Yeah.
It's like
it's like the bridge. It's like the bridge.
Yeah. So we've got two shots that have not been used, which we know are going to pop up next week. But as I said, there's so many character arcs to do, and as well, this is it's a mini series, but it's setting up as part of the big picture. And this really feels like, I know that people call it the Mandoverse, and they said there should be a proper name. I'll just end up calling it the Thrawn Saga probably. This feels like part one, not the first 3 seasons of The Mandalorian. This feels like part one. And I'm very curious about what does happen moving forward with Mandalorian Season 4. Does The Mandalorian stay its own thing? Or does it become more of this big galaxy tale, which I think it could lean towards? I know there were moments of Mandalorian feels like it was setting up. This sounds really strange. This is me thinking out loud. Mandalorian on paper right now felt like it was setting up the sequel trilogy more so than Ahsoka, which is setting up a story in the here and now. But I'd imagine they're all going to end up merging together, which is obviously up for Filoni, Favreau, all the others to be involved in with each other. But I'm excited for that finale. And kind of sticking with that. I mean, I'm not going to say it was only a 40-minute episode. There's only been 2 of us. We've gone over an hour. There's been a lot of zigzagging, as we kind of said. It's been a long day. We've both been on, which has been great. Just, if I get your final thoughts on this episode today, we'll sort of segue into the outro and talk of what is coming up too.
Yeah, I mean, solid episode. I mean, it my favorite? No, but I would find it difficult to choose a least favorite episode this series because I mean, nothing's been bad, and I feel like I've said this in for the majority of the live action Star Wars series. I think in every episode of it, there's been something to enjoy. So I can't. There's nothing that I've gone. I despise that, or I thought that was a really bad decision. I didn't like it. And I think, especially with Star Wars, I feel like you've got to try and at least be open minded. And if you don't like something, fine. I try and make that clear. You don't dog on something too much. If you didn't like it, fine. I guess my only thing for next week is that I just feel like Ezra is done for. If I was going to make any prediction, that's my only thing, because I just feel like, not that there's one too many Jedi, but I feel like he just feels like he's someone that they could afford to lose and it hit the audience. And not that I want to lose him, because even though I don't really know the character that well, I enjoy his presence so much. And it's like the amount of times he said about going home, it's not been said in the show, but he's not met Jason before. That would be a meeting that I'm sure many fans would love to see. I'm sure people would love to see him and Hera reunite, and of course other characters from the Rebels era. It would be the tragedy. It would be, this is what's going to set up this series, that there's been a loss, that basically this series was building up to from the get-go, was finding Thrawn but also Ezra, to get one of them back, and it's the guy we didn't want to come back. That would be the gut punch, and I don't want it to happen, but at the same time it could lead to great things, but I don't want it to happen.
No, of course. I'm just going to put a quick comment by Phil. This was my least favourite for Sabrina's. I think they're going to hit the fan when Ezra finds out she's been hiding how and why she's there. Yeah. They scattered around it. We'll get more information, no doubt. And I said that's another big story they've got to do next week. And I'm kind of saying this, that my thoughts this week, I very much did enjoy the episode. But it is that gap of, I'm expecting something insane in the finale. And because there's no big cliffhanger this week, we had a big episode 5 and 6 back-to-back with 2 mega episodes. So I don't mind something smaller scale this week, such as this, because it's built up Thrawn even more. We're getting things set up in play, I think, for an explosive finale. So I'm happy with that. I'm fine with that. And it does make me excited to see next week as soon as it does drop. And with that being said, I guess it's time to talk about next week. We do want to hear from people watching at home. So as you said, if you're not watching live, you're watching later on. Thanks to all the new people that have been watching our Star Wars videos. It's always nice to get new faces on. But do comment your thoughts if you're watching it. We will reply to comments, even though we're not live. We do check those comments. And if you like this video, do consider hitting subscribe. There's a lot of other Star Wars stuff happening. And there's no other shows this year. But as I said, there's a plan in place for something which I'll touch upon in a bit more detail. But aside from this, the finale is a week today. We've had a lot of people jump on this channel across the series. And I'll be really honest, for anyone at home, there is no official plan for the finale yet. When we do have it, we'll put it on social media. We'll put it on the YouTube community page. I don't know how many people are going to be on the episode. I don't know what time the episode's going to drop. There is no plan. What I can tell you is that next Wednesday, London Film Festival starts. So I'm going to be on a 3 a.m. coach on Thursday morning due to train strikes to get me to a screening of The Killer. So any update for next Wednesday will be updated when there is a schedule. And again, we don't know who we're going to get on. We don't know if people can make it. So anyone that doesn't make it to the finale next week, if there is this other video with the finale sticks is landing, then it's going to be open warfare for people to jump on. So there's more Star Wars stuff coming. I don't know the context of the more Star Wars stuff, but there is more in the plan. Sam, I know you're just like, what the hell was he on about? I've told him none of this. It's always a pleasure to get you on. and listen, always thank you for coming on. Everyone gets on social media. We've got it as well. We're always tweeting our stuff. We've got your YouTube channel as well. It's been amazing to get on. You join us our Fight Club review. We're doing the David Fincher retrospective every Monday, 8 p.m. Next week is, we recorded it, Zodiac. We've got a great guest on that one. Ahsoka fan next Wednesday. We've had a review up, spoiler-free review for The Creator went up in the morning. We're going to have a big spoiler discussion this weekend. We've got to record 2 Fincher reviews. We've got to do a spoiler discussion for The Creator. We've got to do our monthly stream. We've got to plan Ahsoka. We've got to do festival artwork. It's a busy month. So time is ticking. But as always, I'm going to thank everybody for watching at home, for watching with us. Take care, and we shall see you on the next one.
See ya.